Provide you with the sports betting tips, picks, and information in order for you to become a successful gambler. We have 5 packages that I think really do an incredible job of providing the information tailored to you, what you want, and what your sports betting needs are. For more information, reach out to the TWSN team, but we have a ton of stuff coming your way. Content from fantasy football, sports betting for UFC, NBA, NHL, and of course the NFL. We are so excited to be able to bring this service to you, and let us know if there's any more information you need.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down on.
We made it. The NBA season is here. We've had 3 nights of NBA action. This is the 4th night of NBA action. After this week goes by, I'll be honest, I'll stop counting the days. But right now, it just feels great. And guys, we're here for another On the Ball show on Friday night. You guys know what we do. All 5 of us are here, which is awesome to see. And let's get this thing going, man. Before we start, obviously, like and subscribe if you guys are enjoying the content. Make sure to comment down below your thoughts. We're going to be talking about an array of things and topics today, discussions. Let's just get into it, man. First topic, let's talk about the NBA Top 75. So the 75th anniversary list, or it was 75th anniversary, 75th year of the NBA. They decided to come out with a list of the top 75 players, basically of all time. And they didn't really release it in order. It was kind of just like 25, the first 25, and then the middle top 25, and then the last 25 in 3 consecutive nights in a row. Let's just get our overall thoughts. Nader, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the list? And also, do you think the list should have been in order? And then finally, a couple snubs maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually a very interesting idea, and I was happy the NBA did this because it was able to, shed some light on some older legends that, Jacob would have watched when he was a kid. So I'm just really pleased with the way that the NBA did this. I thought that it was a pleasant idea. I'm sure Jacob enjoyed it as well to see his guy Dalche's on the list. But, I mean, of course, with everything, there are going to be a few snubs and there are going to be opinions where people aren't happy with. Guys like Klay Thompson could have made it. Guys like Dwight Howard, who at his peak was one of the best centers of all time. Not the best, or really even top 5, but certainly one of the best centers of all time. You guys like Tracy Mcgrady, who had all the talent in the world and arguably could have gotten a spot on that list. And I'm just, and also I don't necessarily think it should have been in order because that's a very subjective topic. And knowing big sources like the NBA, they probably would have screwed it up and made it extremely biased. And I think that making it in order would have just given it all the reasons for people to hate on it and all the reasons for people to critique it. So I think just a general top 75 and leaving the fans to make it up who's there and what order it's in. I think that's a smart idea. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a cool idea, and overall I think it was pretty good. Just a few snubs that I would have maybe liked to see on the list.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Nader said. I don't appreciate this whole I'm super old bull crap, but I mean, he talks about how I love Dolph Shays. Well, I think that they made the list specifically so people like Nader was like, oh, I know that guy. He was like playing when I was alive, because Nader probably doesn't know about like all the people, even from like the 90s. He's like, wait, who's that? Who's Gary Payton? Who's this? Who's that? But
Who's Michael Jordan?
Oh yeah,
I'm cultured, Jacob. I'm very cultured.
Cultured and not know about history are two different things. But anywho, I digress again. But I like most of the list. I really think a lot of this bloviated talk about like, oh, this guy was snubbed. Like, it's really a bunch of hogwash crap. Like, I saw a list and they had like snubs, said Penny Hardaway, Grant Hill, Vince Carter. I'm like, Vince Carter should have retired like 10 years ago. He played like way too long. I don't know why he did. I think it's gonna hurt his Hall of Fame chances, but the Basketball Hall of Fame has turned into the Hall of Very Good, which is very disappointing. But otherwise, I like the list for the most part. I think they got most of them right. And if there were any snubs, they were, not too big of deals, in my personal opinion.
Jacob, what about you? Or excuse me, Justin. Sorry. Okay, I guess Justin's having a little technical difficulties. But yeah, I mean, this list, to be quite honest, was was a really cool idea. I mean, I kind of thought of this as more of like the 75 biggest figures in league history. It's less about, there's not really a rigid criteria with like the objective, and it's obviously not ranked, which I think was a good thing because it's more about celebrating the legends who have made the game what it is from, basically every decade that in NBA history. So it's like, does anyone really care if Dolph Shays made it over Kyrie Irving? I guess some people care. But I don't really, because it's less about like ranking the objective 75 best players as more about just celebrating the game's history. And I think that's great to do. And that's the reason why I wasn't in order. I think that was a smart thing to do because a lot of people would have made way too big of a deal if it was. I mean, some people already kind of make it too big of a big deal. But I think that was a smart thing to do. There are a few potential snubs. Like I think guys like Alonzo Mourning, Grant Hill, even Pau Gasol could have warranted a spot on the list. But the two guys that I think objectively deserve to be, or objectively top 75 players to ever play the game of basketball are Dwight Howard and Tracy McGrady. I understand Tracy McGrady dipped a little in the postseason, but that's mainly due to his situation. McGrady is one of the most talented scorers who's ever graced the hardwood, to be quite honest. And I just don't understand how he wasn't in the top 75. To be honest, I'd probably say he's closer to 50 than he is to 75. And then Dwight Howard, I would also say is easily. I mean, a lot of people forget, but Dwight Howard was an absolute monster. This dude arguably should have been the 2011 MVP. He was top three, finished top three in that year. He was all NBA performer for like 6 years straight, all-star for 8 years straight, defensive player of the year for 3 years straight. He was one of the best players in this league in his peak years with the Orlando Magic, and he got them to an NBA Finals as well, even though they lost to the Lakers. So those two, McGrady and Dwight Howard, objectively deserve to be on this list, in my opinion. But with that said, we'll move on to our other topic, and that's going to be, talking about some entertaining games, the most entertaining games that we've seen, and the games that so far have jumped out to us for various reasons. Thomas, we'll start with you on this one. What's been your favorite game to watch this far? It doesn't have to be a national TV game. It could be maybe an under the radar game where it's like an NBA prospect that you really liked, showed out, or just something intriguing that you saw from the game.
I mean, I think Jacob's going to appreciate this one. Celtics-Knicks was an unbelievable game from start to finish. Julius Randle was otherworldly. He picked up right where he left off from last regular season. He was just sensational all night long. I liked what I saw from their free agency additions. I really liked what I saw from Fournier. Kemba, he's starting to look like he's getting back to old Kemba, which is really, really great to see. Their bench played really well as well. Obi Toppin didn't have the best year last year as a rookie, but he looked like he really bounced back. He looked like he gained a lot of confidence. I really, really loved how he played. And then on the Celtics side of things, obviously, I think they would have won if Tatum was just even the slightest bit better. 7 for 30, 2 of 15 from 3. Like that is unspeakably bad. But they had Jaylen Brown to carry them through all night. Grant Williams was a pleasant surprise. I was kind of questioning why they started him, but he hit a couple clutch threes for them. He played a really, really solid game. I think that was probably my favorite game to watch. I watched almost the entire end of the game, almost the entire second half. It was a really, really great game. We saw the stars show out. I hope that's a playoff series, honestly. I'd love to see a rematch of Knicks versus Hawks, but I honestly think Celtics-Knicks would be such a good rivalry, especially if the Knicks get home court advantage and they get 4 games at Madison Square Garden.
All right, I guess I'll jump in. I'm going to echo what Thomas said. Knicks, Celtics, and yes, I'm a Knicks fan, but, don't cry about it. I don't care what you think. It was an amazing game. It was exhilarating and heart-wrenching at the same time. I was going nuts watching the game, the highs, the lows. But to break the whole game down, what I loved was it's clear that Evan Fournier is a bigger upgrade than Reggie Bullock offensively. He needs to play defense, and I was screaming about that because I don't like it when he takes plays off. But it was good. I love the way Obi Toppin was playing. I thought he played with this renewed energy, confidence. I firmly believe he will have a much better year than his rookie year went. Obviously, it was very bad, but I think he'll be much improved. as long as he plays and he just gets better defensively and just knows what he needs to do, he's going to be fine. I think Kemba Walker was okay. I'm not that worried. I think he'll get better as time goes on. I just love the fact that he loves being a Knick. I agree with Thomas that the Knicks were helped out by the fact that Jason Tatum was garbage and maybe had the worst game of his career. But at the same time, the Knicks, they gutted it out. It was a great performance. Julius Randle was great, although I would get angry when I'd see him do his Julius Randle thing where he thinks he's Dirk and he posts up and he takes a terrible one-legged shot. My opinion, you should not be allowed to take post shots where you fade away unless you're like one of like the 75 greatest players of all time, because they make it work. You're supposed to lean in, Julius, not out. You want to lean towards the basket, not, fundamentals, But anyway, I love this Knicks team. I love how deep they are. I think that they can really make some hay in the East. And I felt like even though I have them as 7 seed, I had the Celtics as my 8th seed, the reason I did is because I think the East has gotten better. And I think that those teams are very close together as far as like where they're going to be. But I think this is going to be a good year for the Knicks. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, so, the Knicks-Celtics game was probably the most entertaining game so far into the season. But the game I want to highlight may not really be deemed as entertaining. I want to highlight Wizards versus Raptors simply because the Washington Wizards, obviously, they had Scott Brooks for 4 years straight, and that it was messy. Except for that first year, it was a pretty messy 4 years. Now they bring in Wes Unseld Jr., who's clearly been prioritizing defense. It's been made clear that he's prioritizing defensive rotations. He's trying to get Bradley Beal more involved off ball. And with all the depth that the Wizards added this offseason, despite trading Russell Westbrook, this is one of the deeper teams in the Eastern Conference. And although outside of Bradley Beal, it might be a little bit bleak, with the right coaching, they could easily be a playoff team. And I'm not just talking play, and I'm talking potentially top 6. But that's a little bit of an overreaction. I don't think they'll do that. But, what I saw from the Wizards against the Toronto Raptors was amazing. So first of all, I just have to get this out of the way. The Raptors, I still think they're a great team. I still think they're going to be a playing team. But it was their first game at home in around 2 seasons. So for the Wizards to be able to sort of lock them up in their first home game back in a very long time, that's something that I didn't see coming. And Bradley Beal didn't have your typical Bradley Beal game. Obviously, he played great, and he didn't play too many minutes. I expected him to play around 37, but he played 34. Same thing, but he only had 23 points, and the Wizards still won by 15. This game was more so played defensively. Daniel Gafford was a menace at the rim. Kyle Kuzma was playing some really good defense, and he was crashing the boards. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope just brought that gritty veteran presence to the court. And Raul Neto played amazing on defense. Aaron Holiday played pretty good on defense. Even Davis Bertans played okay on defense in the 6 minutes he played, 12. And one more thing I want to highlight about this game, this may have been Denny Avdija's best game as a pro yet. Maybe not from the box score, but in terms of impact, he was making some really solid passes. He was playing great defense. He was hitting shots. I'm not going to say a breakout year, but this is going to be a huge step up for him in his sophomore year. And overall, Wes Unseld Jr. is going to turn this team around.
Before Nader talks about the Bulls, I'd like to just give mine because I think some fireworks are about to go off. So I just want to calm before the storm. I just want to give mine before the things really get going here. My game is this is an underrated game. It certainly hasn't been like the most entertaining, but I don't know. It was just I tuned into the game and I was thoroughly entertained from start to finish. And that was the Grizzlies versus Cavs game that happened a couple nights ago. It's just seeing Mobley play really well. I think he kind of justified and showed a ton of those flashes as why a lot of people, including us, saw him as the second best prospect with even the ceiling to be the best player from the 2021 draft class and one of the top players in the league. Then John Morant picked up where he left off with a great game. So it was an under the radar game, back and forth. It was entertaining from the tip off to the final buzzer, and I enjoyed it. But with that said, Nader, talk about your Bulls and what you saw from them against the Detroit Pistons.
I already see Jacob making his faces. He knows something's about to come. But I'll wait a bit, Jacob, before I flame you. So I just wanted to say this. For all you NBA fans, I appreciate this. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for actually not overreacting to the fact that we beat a caveless Pistons team by 6. It doesn't matter. We are away, and it was our first game together on a 75% new team. There's only really one player from the GarPax era, and that just says so much about our team. Our team is 75 to 90% new, and I think that we still looked great. The rhythm, it wasn't ours, and that's the reason that we weren't doing as well. But at the same time, we managed to fight back. And that Pistons team, as bad as they are tough and they will fight, and I respect them for that. And with that being said, I am so excited for this Bulls team to finally, when their offense gels, as I saw Justin say on Twitter the other day, they are going to be one good team. And by one good team, I mean much better than your New York fake, phony Knicks. Oh my God, they beat a 2-0 Celtics thriller when Jason Tatum had the worst game of his career. Are you really proud of that, Jacob? Are you proud of that?
You ready, pal? It's still better than beating a hapless Piston team without their shiny new toy, Cade Cunningham. You only scored 94 points, for crying out loud. You know,
and did you not just hear what I said? You guys have an identical team. You have an identical team with the minuses of better players like Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier.
Last year? Was Evan Fournier on the team?
Is your core still there? Is your core still there?
How many points did
Answer the question, Jacob. Is your core still there?
How many points did Evan Fournier score?
Is your core still there, Jacob?
Most of it, but you're not answering.
No, what do you mean most of it? Your core is still there.
How many points?
Julius Randle is still there. Our new core is Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and the only player that Zach LaVine really played with last year is out. So you're telling me that Zach LaVine beating an NBA level team, because the Pistons, whether you want to call them a high school team or not, they still have Jeremy Grant and they still had some ballers. And I give props to the Pistons for that.
Nader.
You guys beat a Celtics team led by Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum had the worst career of his worst day he's ever had probably in the history of him touching a basketball.
I don't know, Nader. Jaylen Brown only scored 40.
I don't want to hear it, Jacob.
Oh, really? Well, you're going to have to hear it because you ready for this? The Bulls bench scored 10 points against the Pistons. The Bulls.
Wait, what's Caruso's job? Caruso's job isn't to score. And Kobe White, our sixth man of the year
candidate,
supposed to do?
Continue
so what do you want us to do?
I mean, I don't know what his job is. I mean, come on now. But anyway.
Wait. Oh, my bad. You could go.
I'm almost done, Justin.
No, go ahead. No, I want to hear what Justin has to say.
No, I'll let Jacob go.
Nader has been cutting me off this entire time, and it's my friggin' turn to talk. Anyway, the Bulls bench is garbage. You scored 10 points.
Garbage.
Let me finish, pal.
Garbage.
Nader, you're in timeout. You scored 10 points against Detroit. 10 points. The Bulls bench is so bad that you couldn't even find half of them on Wikipedia. That's how unknown they are. That's how bad they are. All the Bulls bench is who the is this? Sorry, my language. Who is that? It's who? It's you mention name. It's what is this like the leftovers on The Bachelor? What the hell is going on? I mean, it's just and if one of your big stars gets hurt, it's going to unravel because who is going to replace them? If Nikola Vucevic gets hurt, who's going to step in? Huh?
Jacob, in 10 seconds, tell me why the Knicks are better than the Bulls.
I mean, that's all you need, 10 seconds. Hello, their bench. We have a bench. They don't. Ball game. We have a bench. They don't have a bench. We have the experience. We have a better coach. We have...
All right. He got his 10 seconds.
Okay, all right. I want to interject.
Bench is 50 times better.
All right, the bench.
Please.
Right, Justin, Justin, break the tie. Who's the better team, the Bulls or the Knicks? Settle this debate.
So in our Eastern Conference preview, I said the Bulls were better, but I take that back. The New York Knicks are a better basketball team than the Bulls. And here's why I think this. So Nader was talking about, they added DeMar, they added Lonzo, they have Vucevic for a full season. Well, yeah, they're the more improved team over the offseason. Obviously, they are. The Knicks still had a great offseason, but being the more improved team doesn't make you the better team. That's not the sole reason. And also, the Knicks defense it's far better. It's far better. And I like Billy Donovan as a coach. I think he'll turn it around, especially with Kobe White coming back. But some of the lineups he ran in this game, it's the big reason why this was closer than it should have been, especially without Cade Cunningham. Let that sink in. This team, that's the new shiny team in the NBA because they added a bunch of star power, they only beat the Pistons without Cade Cunningham by 6 points. And a lot of that was due to coaching. And a solid amount was due to defense. And although the Pistons only had 88 points, there were a lot of shots that they should have made that just didn't fall. So that leads me to my conclusion. The New York Knicks are better than the Bulls.
Wait, based off that point, didn't the Lakers just lose to the Warriors?
Okay, the
Wait,
Warriors.
answer my question. Wait, no, answer my question. Didn't the Lakers lose to the Warriors by
Yes,
around the
Warriors
same score
are
that the
better
Pistons?
than the Lakers
Does that
also.
make the Warriors better than the Lakers?
Yes, the Warriors are better than the Lakers, and the Warriors will win the West. But that's not what we're talking about.
Guys,
we're talking
it's
about
one
the Knicks.
game, so like one game doesn't really.
It's one game. You guys
I'm
are
not
really
saying
judging
it's off
a
one-
new team, as you said, based off a one.
I'm not judging it off one game, but some lineups in this game, in the Bulls game, were just bad all around. And I think if your offense gels, they're one of the best offenses in the league. But the Knicks, they're more well-rounded. They have a great offense as well now. And I just think overall the Knicks are a better team. And it's not off one game either. I think the Bulls are going to turn it around. But
I respect it.
I mean,
I respect
and
it.
also the
But you're
Warriors
giving
are-
Jacob a lot of confidence boosters. But
Yeah.
I respect it.
You know, Nader, I'll give you a confidence booster. I would take the Bulls over the Knicks. So actually, Thomas, you're the tiebreaker.
Yes,
The
sir.
Bulls or the Knicks?
I had the Bulls over the Knicks in my standings.
Come
and
back.
One game is not going to sway my opinion. on that.
Okay, the Knicks.
Exactly.
A
3-2.
advantage.
All right.
Jacob's
The
confidence
Bulls
down.
on the ball crew has spoken. The Bulls are better than the Knicks.
To kind of quickly justify why I think so. First off, I really don't care about a one-game sample size against the Pistons. Yes, it was bad. It wasn't great. We also have to keep in mind Vucevic was 7 of 21 from the field. That's not going to happen again. Patrick Williams took 3 shots. That's not going to happen again. They didn't have anyone score over 20 points besides Zach LaVine, and this is supposed to be a team with great offensive firepower. And yes, their bench is very bad. Their bench is bad. But I think if you have Caruso and you have Kobe White who's going to come back, if they decide to use Troy Brown, I think they can be at least hold down the fort at times. Like I don't think their bench is going to completely kill them. So I'm gonna take the Bulls. It's close. I think the Bulls' sheer talent wins out.
If Troy Brown is your 8th man, then I don't know, man.
It is. I'm not saying it's great, but I'm just saying I think
I have the Bulls too as well, but
I think
Hey,
Troy
he'll
Brown
play-
said he's
is a
all
good
right.
player.
kind of captures you.
Hey, he'll play good.
Is that his right man though?
Troy Brown's all right. But guys, we're gonna keep it moving to another topic. Let's discuss a couple teams really more in depth, and just give our thoughts on what we've seen from them. We'll start with the Golden State Warriors. They're 2-0, and they won both games really in a different way. The first game, obviously, Curry was just completely off from a scoring standpoint, and then the second game, he flipped the switch immediately, as Steph Curry does all the time, and he absolutely went off for 45 points on excellent shooting. He had 25 in the first quarter on perfect shooting. I think he was 9 for 9 from the field, and 5 or 6 of those were threes as well. So look, we obviously talked about the Warriors pretty in depth. We've talked about the Warriors a lot in the offseason and our thoughts on them. But through these first 2 games, what have you guys learned to maybe change your opinion, or has your opinion kind of stayed the same? What are your thoughts on how the Warriors have looked 2 games in? Jacob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I had them as my 6. I had the Clippers 1 spot ahead. And yes, I know that was a little bold, but I don't care. But what I saw in that game was I saw 2 teams that seemed pretty close together. And again, as I said, Paul George is going to win the MVP. You heard it here first. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. He's going to be great. I think he will carry this team despite the subpar supporting cast. But Eric Bledsoe is not as bad as everyone thinks he is. I firmly believe that. He gets too much hate. I don't care what his shooting percentage is. The Pelicans, they didn't want to listen to Stan Van Gundy. That's not his fault. Anyway,
The Warriors, Jacob. We're talking about the Warriors.
well, they're talking about the team they played. Just
Okay,
give me a minute.
all right.
But as far as the Warriors go, I am been impressed so far with their bench. I feel like they're more well-rounded as a team than they were last year. And I think one of the big problems is that Oubre and Wiggins together really did not work at all. It was a bad mix together. They're very similar players. They're not supposed to play off each other very well. I thought it was smart of them to, trade Oubre, just let him go. Jordan Poole has really risen. I know Justin's talked a lot about him. Other people have as well. Thomas probably. I think he's going to have a really solid year. And when this team gets Clay back, they will be a lot better. And yeah, I think the bench is better. I loved Otto Porter. I love Bielitsa. They just have a lot of good pieces. And I think that they can definitely make some hay in the Western Conference.
So with the Warriors, I just said it, and I've said it since the offseason started. This team will make the NBA Finals. And if the Kyrie Irving solution isn't solved by the finals, which I think it will be, but if it's not, they'll win the championship, in my opinion. And the reason for that is, I mean, Jordan Poole in the Lakers game, he looked better down the stretch, but in those first 2 quarters, he didn't look great. It took him a while to find his rhythm. And he didn't really do great against the Clippers either. But one thing I've really taken away from Jordan Poole that I've really liked to see is his confidence, his ability to shoot. I mean, some shots he takes aren't the greatest, but his confidence as a shot taker is off the charts. And I think that's going to be really helpful, especially when Klay Thompson comes back and he gets more attention off of him as a second option. And also without the ball, he fits into the system perfectly. And that leads me to my next point. The Warriors, the way they play is going to make them so hard to beat because this team spaces the floor more than really any team we've ever seen still without Kevin Durant and even without Klay Thompson. They're still able to get around the court and move off ball more than most teams ever have. And that's a plus. That makes them really, really hard to guard, especially when you have Stephen Curry as your offensive engine, who's still the best player in the league. And we saw that against the Clippers. He's still the best player in basketball. Andrew Wiggins, he's looked solid. It's not too much on him. Draymond Green's looked pretty good. And overall, the additions they've made this past offseason. Nemanja Bjelica, I didn't think too much of that signing, but he's looking like a true do-it-all guy. And we've never really seen that in his career. He's playing defense. He's making good passes. He's shooting the ball like he always has. Otto Porter Jr.'s played pretty solid, and I expect him to level it up a little more. And Andre Iguodala, he's stepped back right where he left off as a Warrior. He's looked great so far, and in the playoffs, we know that's going to get better. I want to see Juan Toscano Anderson play a little more because I really like him a lot too. I think he should play a little more than Damian Lee. But other than that, when this team gets healthy, I think they're the team to beat in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at Golden State's 2 games, right? And their first game, it was not a great performance by Steph at all. And Jordan Poole was fine, but I don't think he's at the level that a lot of people, including myself, expected him to play at. Wiggins has been fine so far, but nothing amazing. Kind of the same thing with Draymond here. The bench has been pretty good. I really like Otto Porter Jr. I tweeted about him last night. I think he's going to be a really big piece for this team. Bjelica's been great. JTA's been great. Moody has even come in and made some solid plays when he gets minutes. Why do I bring all this up? Because the Golden State Warriors, despite the fact I don't think they've played all that good in these past 2 games. I really don't. And they're 2-0. They're 2-0. Jordan Poole is 12 for 32 in 2 games. Steph Curry, granted, did have one amazing performance, but also had one terrible performance. Their supporting cast has been good, but not great. And they're 2-0 without Klay Thompson. Like, I don't even – and the one thing I really like this year, it's something I've kind of taken notice of. Steve Kerr's system works so much better when you have a good team because when you're able to have when you're running that type of offense where you're keeping all 5 guys involved, everyone's moving, everyone's staying active. You have to have high IQ decision makers, all that kind of stuff. That doesn't work when you're a bad team, and we saw that last year. Like it didn't work when there aren't enough talented players. But now the Warriors are a deep team. And they took out some of the players that were causing problems and brought in new high IQ, smart players who know how to play a role. And so this system works so much better with good players than it does with bad ones when you're keeping all 5 guys active. So Steph is going to have more game-to-game consistency. Jordan Poole, I really do think he's going to get better. I think some of the expectations for him were a little high coming into the season, but he was still one of my top 5 most improved player candidates. So I really do think he's going to step it up a little bit. Same thing with Wiggins. This team is 2-0 without Klay, and I don't even think they play particularly good. I'm not going to draw any conclusions because it's been 2 games, but they're going to be really, really good.
As Thomas said, I honestly think that this Warriors team has the ability to be really, really good. I had them as my 5th seed going into this year, but who knows? Maybe they can end up clinching a top 4 seed and getting home advantage in the playoffs. But the thing is, I am really happy that Steph Curry had a rebound performance. They still managed to beat the Lakers after not having really any great individual performances or any outstanding individual performances. Stephen Curry didn't have a fantastic game in game one. He himself said it, that he played like trash. And for his standards, which are extremely high, yes, he did play like trash, because Steph Curry, in my opinion, is the greatest point guard to ever touch a basketball. So therefore, he has to play like he's the greatest point guard to ever touch a basketball on a pretty much night in and night out basis. But, after yesterday's performance, MV3, hashtag MV3, trending on Twitter, and I really want to see it happen. If I thought that last year could have potentially been his third MVP, I hope it happens this year. I really do. And I think that if the Warriors team can win and eliminate that, winning bias narrative against them, he can definitely get it done. And many people, and even over the summer when we were talking about this in the Magic Johnson versus Stephen Curry debate, we said that Stephen Curry needs at least 2 to 3 more years of elite play to be considered to finally have that, one more thing over Magic Johnson in order to secure a spot as the greatest point guard of all time. And if he continues to play at least as good or somewhat close to as good as he did last night, and similar to how he did last year, not even at the pace he did last year, if he even gets close to what last year, his case is definitely going to be higher. I already think that he's the best of all time, but if Curry can win another MVP or even just play as good as we've seen him play and know how he can play at this age, he's definitely going to be going down as the greatest point guard of all time. And this season is really going to help his legacy if he does what he's been showing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is with Curry and his longevity, it obviously wasn't that good to start his career, mainly because of injuries, to be quite honest. But he's in a prime position to make up for it in the back end of his career, to be honest. I mean, I guess his physical prime is kind of wearing down, but it really isn't from a production standpoint at all. It's like the prime you typically see with basketball, athletes in particular with basketball, it's like 27 through like 32, something like that. And Curry is just past that at this point. But it really doesn't matter because his shooting, he's always going to be like an all-time great 3-point shooter. Like even when he's 40, he's still going to be knocking down threes at well over 40% on excellent volume. I mean, it won't be like the greatest. It'll definitely get a little worse, but it's still going to be an all-time great level. The thing is with Curry and his longevity is, I think his ability to run and move off ball as to the degree that he does, it's going to be tough to do that at like 38 and even 40. So that'll probably be what deteriorates, but everything else, he's in prime position for great longevity. And then as the Warriors are concerned, I'm honestly ready to kind of say that I think we were a little too hard on the Warriors in their offseason because they didn't make a splash move. Obviously, we know that. They didn't trade their draft picks in Kuminga or Moody. But I'm kind of convinced that the deals were just never on the table. And maybe they could have done a better job of trying to make a deal on the table, get a deal on the table. But at the end of the day, it hadn't happened. But like the Otto Porter Jr. and Bjelica signings they're proving to be terrific signings. And they're certainly not terrific players. But when you can get players like that who are solid role players in really any system, but in the Warriors system, they fit so well. I mean, in these games, Porter Jr. and Bjelica, they both had plays where they would basically set kind of these little like back screens, and it was just all intuitive. It wasn't even like a part of the play design. It was just like natural, and they were setting a back screen for a shooter. And it was just a part of the play. Like they're just so smart players, and they fit in the system so well. Iguodala is back as well, and that is proving to be really good for the Warriors as well. And the biggest thing is last year, the Warriors were just in this learning phase, and now they're, to start the season, it was really rough. They didn't play well at all. And it took a long time for the Warriors to eventually find their stride. And they kind of did as the season went on. This year, they're basically in, they still have lots of room to grow. But even when they don't play well, they can still get wins against quality opponents. And they're not going to get blown out like they were last year to start the season. So they're growing into the motion offense system. There's not a big of an adjustment curve for as many players in their rotation. And I think come playoff time, they can beat any team in the West. But guys, let's move on to another topic, another team, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. Look, it's only been one game, but the Mavericks, they looked really bad against the Hawks. It was Jason Kidd's first game as their head coach, and there was definitely some discouraging signs. So, Thomas, we'll start with you on this one. Are the Mavericks poised for regression under Kidd at this point, and how bad do you think that regression could be this season?
I absolutely think they are, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be really bad. Like, I think it has potential to be really, really bad. I never liked the Kidd signing from the start. And now, after seeing that game, I just have no faith. he's trying to go away from a Luka-centric offense, which they've run that offense for 3 years in a row. And now he's trying to get away from it, even though Luka has been the centerpiece of 2 historic offenses for the past 2 seasons. But no, Jason Kidd's like, I want more Dorian Finney-Smith post-up touches. Like, the way he's trying to run an offense, he's trying to get, like, more creators involved and more guys getting more touches and more shots. And that works if you have a secondary creator. But the problem is that the Mavericks didn't go out and get a second guy next to Luka, but are playing like they got a second guy. And they didn't. I'm so frustrated. They're running they've had so many. I'll have to go back and count how many post touches Dorian Finney-Smith and Kristaps Porzingis has, because it's easily over 15. Like, it is. Dorian Finney-Smith was 2 for 12, and Porzingis was 4 for 13. So, according to my math, that's not very good. So, I'm sorry, I'm very frustrated about this because I love Luka and I think he's amazing, and I don't understand why Jason Kidd doesn't see that. It's so frustrating to watch a player that's so talented and his team just fails him. Like, it's just all around, from the management to not getting him a proper team to put around him, to running an offense through Dorian Finney-Smith instead of him. Like, I'm so angry. I can't even form words about what I want to say because I'm so angry about this. But again, I hate overreacting to one game. And I do think Luka is so special that Jason Kidd's going to wake up one day and realize, hey, this guy's pretty good. We should probably give him the ball. So I'm not going to overreact and say they're going to be the 15 seed in the West. But based on what I saw yesterday, even though it was against a very good Hawks team, I am immediately concerned.
It is worth noting, though, that the Mavericks did start off slow last year. But
they did.
Before the rest of you guys go, I want to give some discouraging and troubling numbers from the game against the Hawks that basically prove what Thomas is saying here. The Mavericks shot 9 mid-range shots in the first half, and last year they averaged 11.8 per game. And just in the first half, they shot 9. Last year, the Mavericks shot 25.8 shots that were not either at the rim or a 3-point shot. And against the Hawks, they shot 22 of those same kind of shots in the first 2.5 quarters. So, I mean, those are just the numbers right there that basically prove what you saw, Thomas, in the game, that they're just running an offense that's not what they've run in the past. And granted, that system has, shown some weaknesses in the playoffs, but it also got them to the point to get even into the playoffs. And if they keep doing this, they're not even going to sniff the playoffs. So,
or hear me out. You could get a second guy next to Luka who can actually create offense so that he's not burnt out in the postseason. I know. I'm a GM.
Revolutionary ideas here on the ball.
Make me the Mavericks GM. I know. It's just. I'm sorry. I'll move on. I got really excited about this.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I'm going to keep it quick so Jacob and Nader could give their opinions because I'm sure we're all along the same lines. But this Dallas Mavericks team, I mean, it's really unfathomable because Luka Doncic is one of the best players in the league. I think he's a borderline top 5 player. And the fact that, as Thomas said, they didn't go out and get a secondary creator. Kristaps Porzingis played bad in the playoffs. Objectively, he was not good. And people were like, oh, he was an all-star in the past. Maybe he could replicate it. It seems like he's just scared to really go down and bang with the bigs down low. It seems like he's scared to do that. And I don't think he's capable of being a secondary creator. He's 25, 26. He doesn't have much room to really improve his game, especially considering he's injured every other game. And Tim Hardaway Jr. is really and Jalen Brunson as well. They're really the only 2 other guys that could create offense on this team. But when those are your 2 second and third options, that's really just, it's hard. And especially when the Mavericks are running their offense the way they do, especially since they're not running it heliocentrically, which I think heliocentric offenses, I don't think they're the best offenses to have. But when you have a guy like Luka Doncic and a supporting cast like he does, you're kind of forced to run an offense like that. And it can work. It can definitely work, because we saw the Hawks with Trae Young go really far. And although the Mavericks supporting cast isn't at the level the Hawks supporting cast is, it still definitely can work, especially when you have Luka Doncic. So it's really tough. They should have traded Porzingis when they could. Now his value probably will just go down again. And as a whole, I don't like the 2 big lineup between Porzingis and Powell. There's just a lot. They don't have bigs. They don't have a good defense. They don't have creators outside of Luka. It's tough. This team's not good.
Yeah. I called it. I said all summer long that Jason Kidd was going to be a disaster. I also said that don't wink. You know it's true. I also said that the Dallas Mavericks were going to be in the play-in tournament because Jason Kidd was going to hold them back. But this is also the part of the problem. This roster is not that good. They added nothing. I mean, I really don't even think. I'm trying to think of like one.
They added Reggie Bullock.
Exactly,
That's it.
and I love Reginald.
Former New York Knick Reggie
I
Bullock.
love Reginald. With all due respect, that's not enough. I mean, I thought Mark Cuban was a smart guy. I didn't know Jim Dolan was running the Mavericks. I mean, come on. And you know one trade that really pisses me off? This is an old trade. They gave away Harrison Barnes for Justin Jackson. You know who could be of use right now on this team? Harrison Barnes. Am I wrong?
They also gave up Seth Curry for who? Richardson.
What did they give up?
Yeah, Josh Richardson. I don't know why.
Wait, but they don't have Josh Richardson anymore.
Different
right?
sport.
Yeah, Harrison Barnes had 36 on the Blazers in this
They
first.
should
he's
trade
still
for Harrison
good.
Barnes again. They should trade back for him.
Yeah.
That was such a dumb trade.
And they traded Seth Curry away as well.
They can
And
trade
again-
Dorian Finney-Smith for Harrison Barnes.
And again, obviously,
Nah,
I
the
don't
Kings
think
would be
that
stupid to
all
accept
hope
that.
is. I don't think that all hope is lost for the Mavericks, but at the same time, I am not the least bit surprised because again, roster is not that good. They don't have a very good coach. They have an inferior coach than they had before, and the West is going to be tough. And I get it; it's one game, la 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 la. But again, I don't know. I'd be a little worried right now if I was a Mavericks fan because we know Luka can do it all himself, blah blah blah. But are we sure he can really he's gonna have to really carry this team on his back this year, really like his back's gonna break, that's how much he's gonna have to carry the team, you know what I mean? But Paul George will still win MVP because he's gonna have to also carry his team, and just gonna put that out there.
Of course, Jacob has to make something uncontroversial that we all agree on, controversial somehow. But regarding that, I have to agree with all of you. There's no disagreements in this. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's been a saying that we've had for so long. And though this offense had their holes in it, there's ways you can enhance it. But Jason Kidd has found a way to completely tear it up. And that's what you get when you hire Jason Kidd to be your head coach after you had Rick Carlisle, who is completely fine. If you thought that the head coach was the biggest issue on this team, you have issues. It's obviously the roster that you put around Luka, who's a generational talent and will go down as one of the best players of all time. And if you decide that you want Dorian Finney-Smith to be his second best player, I don't know why you have a job in the NBA. This team needs more star talent. Did you see what the Bulls did? Although, they're not trying to brag about the Bulls put stars around Zach LaVine. Although they're not superstars, they got Lonzo Ball, who's a borderline star, or who can, develop into one. I wouldn't say he's a star yet. I'm not going to be biased. But you got DeMar DeRozan, who is a star. You got Caruso, who's a really good player. He's not a star, but he's a really good player. They changed their roster because they knew that Zach LaVine only, and of course you can't really compare Zach to Luka, he wasn't going to do it. You give Luka the Bulls roster, that's a championship level team. That's a championship level team right there. I'm sorry, but you just have to make changes to this team. Mark Cuban has to do something huge. He has to make a lot of moves at the trade deadline. They've made some terrible moves in the past. I don't know why you got rid of Seth Curry. I don't know why you got rid of Harrison Barnes. I'm not even sure where Justin Jackson is right now. Maybe he's on the Kings, I believe. Harrison Barnes is still on the Kings. Josh Richardson is a Celtic. It's terrible. It's terrible. I really feel bad for Luka. Porzingis should not be your number 2 option in any situation, whether it's preseason, G League, Summer League, NBA playoffs, anything. And I really hope that they can get their act together because I want to see Luka succeed. And people are going to start to tear him down with false narratives because winning bias is a real thing and it's annoying.
It's almost as if the solution for the Mavericks wasn't to change what they were doing from a schematic standpoint. It was more of just upgrade the players on the roster. Again, who would have thought? But, that's the solution for the Mavericks. And they did not follow that blueprint at all in the offseason. And even though it's just one game, the signs are just not encouraging at all. They're just very, very discouraging. And it is frustrating. And the one thing that I kind of think about at this point is, look back to, the Trae Young and Luka Doncic trade. There's so many interesting wrinkles to this trade now. Because, first, there's two, I guess you could say, similar kind of players in that they're just both like genius level playmakers and passers. I mean, they play wildly different styles, I suppose, but they're similar in some ways. In the same draft class, they're traded for each other, and everyone kind of said, no one's here. We all think that Luka is better than Trae Young, but it's interesting. The Mavericks got the better player, but the way that both teams have built around these respective players has been wildly different, and the results have been wildly different. I thought the Mavericks, with the Porzingis trade, were on a much higher track than the Hawks, even though the Hawks have been slowly building such a great roster, and they've done exactly what you need to do around Trae Young. And, some people said the Hawks lost the trade because Trae Young's worse. False. The Hawks did not lose the trade. You know why the Hawks didn't lose the trade? Because they actually knew what they were doing when it comes to building the team around Trae Young, and the Mavericks didn't. So even though the Mavericks got the better player, and again, because of that, I'm not going to say they lost. I still think it is a win-win at the end of the day. But the Hawks actually took advantage of, trading for an excellent talent in Trae Young. And the Mavericks so far have really not done that. But guys, let's shift to our last and final topic. And that's just going to be, we're going to give one team and player who surprised us in a good or bad way. We'll go around the table. So Jacob, we'll start with you.
This is the I'm sorry, I blanked out for a second. This is the surprising thing.
Yeah.
All right, sorry about that.
You're good.
I guess that I was surprised that, I bet Dallas a little bit, but we talked about that, so I'm not going to talk about that. I was surprised about how flat Milwaukee was in their second game against Miami. They got destroyed. I'm like, what? Did they just save all their energy for one game? I was so confused.
It was Mike Budenholzer's second worst loss of his career.
I know. How do you go from having a great game against Brooklyn with getting your rings, raising the banner, getting absolutely trampled by the Heat? And yes, the Heat are a very good team. I understand that, but golly, it's almost like they didn't want to play. I was just shocked. I'm like, that really, really shocked me. I would say, as far as a player, maybe Jared Allen going 11 of 11 and scoring 25 points. Of course, they lost because the coach, but I'm not going to do that tonight.
Oh, no.
And Chris Duarte, I was surprised.
You cannot go a show without mentioning the name of
I didn't mention the name.
Staff.
Oh, well, you did for me. So
I just did.
Don't get him started. Don't get him started.
Just call him the worst coach in the NBA for me.
No, what did I do?
Next
Yeah.
person in line. JB.
We don't talk about JB Bickerstaff or Benson.
Thomas, who's your surprising player and surprising team?
Well, I was actually gonna say Chris Duarte. And not so much that I think it was a surprise because I picked them to make the all-rookie first team. But the Pacers as a whole kind of surprised me. I know they lost. I understand that they lost. But they played really, really well. I was really impressed with how they played against Hornets. I watch a lot of the Hornets because I like watching LaMelo. And the Pacers really impressed me. Sabonis had an absolutely huge game. He's starting to take threes now, which is kind of the next step for his offensive development. Justin Holiday, I thought, had a solid game. Miles Turner was great on defense. Malcolm Brogdon was pretty good, really good, 28 and 11. They played really well, and all while missing Karis LeVert, and that's really impressive. And TJ Warren. So I really liked how they played. They played really, really solid. Chris Duarte, I didn't appreciate the kind of the stigma around him during the pre-draft process. I understood he was 24 years old. No one wants to draft a 24-year-old, but he was one of the most efficient, off the dribble college shooters ever. And that never, when you're that old and you're that efficient as a shooter, that almost always translates. And he had 27 points in his first game, 9 of 15 from the field, 6 of 9 from 3. And he's having a really solid start to his second game right now against Washington. Off the dribble shooting and pull-up shooting at that historically efficient rate almost always translates to the league. So I'm not super surprised, but more of just I'm glad people are kind of waking up, but I think the rookie of the year stuff is a little premature.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But the team I was most surprised about is another team that did lose. It's the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers obviously made the Western Conference Finals even without Kawhi Leonard last year. But I thought it was going to be different this year. I thought they were going to be worse. Not that they're a worse team by any means. I just thought their play style translated more towards the playoffs where they have more time to make adjustments throughout the series because they went down 2-0 in every series, I believe it was, and they were able to bounce back most series. And that was mainly due to them having time to adjust and develop better game plans to go up against teams like the Suns and the Jazz and the Mavericks. And I didn't think that would translate into the regular season because you're going against different teams every night. So I thought they were going to be a playing team, but I didn't think they were going to be anything serious. I thought they would make the playoffs as well. But they surprised me a lot, mainly because I just think the way they play is really translatable to any style of basketball, whether it's the regular season or the play-in or the playoffs. I think this is a style of basketball that could translate to any level. And Paul George, Jacob says he's going to be the MVP. I don't know about that. But if the Clippers are somehow a 5 seed, like he thinks, maybe. But that's getting off track. Paul George played like an MVP against the Warriors. And Eric Bledsoe played really well as well. I mean, he shot 62% from the field, although he wasn't hitting his threes. He played well on both ends of the floor. And although we should expect that to continue, he could have a resurgent season where kind of like how he was in Phoenix, just putting up maybe 15 points per game, which was a little worse than what he was in Phoenix, but still really solid and impactful for the regular season. And Reggie Jackson is a guy that, I mean, I thought it was going to have a really good regular season. He was 4 of 19, and that's not going to happen again. Even if he has a rough year, he's not going to be shooting 21% for the whole year. And if he is, then he's out of a job. But as a whole, I really like Zubac as well. I mean, a lot of people think Zubac is not that great, but I think he does his role as the starting center pretty well. And other guys like Terrence Mann, who he keeps growing on me as a player. And as a whole, I mean, I just really like this team. I mean, Marcus Morris is going to have his inconsistencies throughout the year, but I think with the Mavericks kind of us realizing that they're not going to be as good as maybe we would have expected, the Clippers could be around that 6 to 7 range. And quickly, the player that I've been most surprised with is Mo Bamba of the Magic. Obviously, the Magic, they don't have a great roster, but their front court is still pretty stacked. And Mo Bamba against who I forget who he played. Let me do a quick check.
The Spurs, I believe.
The Spurs.
Yeah, the Spurs.
Yeah, even though they got blown out, Mo Bamba looked great. He looked like he had a lot of new moves. His touch looked great. He was putting up some hook shots. He was finishing well, and he was hitting threes. And now tonight against the Knicks, although the Magic, again, are getting blown out, Mo Bamba's played pretty well in 26 minutes, 11 points, 8 rebounds. He's 4 of 7 from the field, and he's 3 of 5 from the three-point line. So, I mean, as a whole, I think we could see Mo Bamba take that jump we expected him to. Well, not really expected, but I think he's going to be the player that a lot of us thought he would be. And now that he's getting the opportunity in the starting lineup, I don't see what's going to hold him back. So I've been really surprised by him, and I'm glad he's taking this new opportunity to his advantage.
Yeah, and to cap it off, the team I was most surprised with, not necessarily surprised with, because like they're a poverty franchise with all due respect. It's the Kings. They managed to beat the Blazers. Yes, Dame had a terrible game. I don't care if he had 20 points and 11 assists. He shot 0 for 9 from 3, and he went 8 from 24 from the field. That is not good, but still, the Kings got a win. Shout out to Harrison Barnes. He had a nice game. De'Aaron Fox did his thing. Shout out to them. Just wanted to give them a shout out because, the Kings don't do much throughout the year, and I wanted to shed some light on the fact that they did something good. Now, for my player, I have a guy named Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero was against pretty much any narrative you find on Twitter and Instagram last year, and I'm so happy that he's finally starting to flip the narrative. Yes, it's only been one game, but, he played fantastic. In 24 minutes of work, had 27 points. He shot above 50% from the field and 50% from 3, got 5 assists, 6 rebounds. I think that's great. He even with those assists, he contributed. He played like the team. Tyler Hero is back to being the Tyler Hero we saw as a rookie, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, one game sample size, whatever. I saw flashes that I haven't seen in a while from Tyler Hero, and I've been rooting for him to flip that narrative that, NBA Twitter and NBA social media have seemed to flip on guys like Kyle Kuzma as well. And people don't understand, we can easily sometimes just pick up our phones and tweet something about how a player is bad. But when millions of people are doing that every day and sending you things, it's hard. Mentally, it's tough for a player to overcome that. And to see what Tyler Hero has done to add on to his arsenal, and you can even watch the overtime series on him. You can see that he's putting in the work, and I'm really happy for him. He looked great against the Bucks. He shot it well, which we knew Tyler Hero can do. His overall offensive game is great. His defense is, you don't really need to worry about that. Guard defense isn't as important, but love his numbers, love what he's contributing to this team, and love the fact that he can generally be a dangerous 6th man of the year candidate.
Yeah, for sure. Tyler Hero he balled out in that first game, and I would expect that to continue because the Heat are going to give him a lot of opportunity this year, as they should. My team would be the Hornets. I think they they looked really good in the first game against the Pacers, and then they're beating the Cavs right now by 9, so they should close that out and be 2-0. LaMelo Ball's put up 2 great performances, and again, man, he had an awesome game when it comes to his 3-point shooting, and if he can really improve that 3-point shooting and put up he's kind of a streaky. I think LaMelo Ball is a very streaky shooter. He can be very off and on, but if he can really have that thing on for most of the entire year, he's going to be just an excellent offensive player, and he could really have a stellar sophomore season. But their offense, I think overall, Hornets offense looked fresh. Even though they gave up a lot of points on the other end, they had several, crucial defensive stops later in the game in the fourth quarter, really helped seal the win. So I was impressed by that. And look, if they continue to play like this, I think they'll be right in the mix for, a late Eastern Conference playoff spot. In terms of my team that I think, in terms of my player, it would probably be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He had a really good game for the Pelicans, and they need him or Kira Lewis Jr. to step up as the guard, because they obviously lost Lonzo Ball, added Devontae Graham, but Devontae Graham's not necessarily like a long-term fix. They need one of those young guards in Walker or Lewis to step up and really be, just a starting guard for them in the future at the very least, if they want to end up keeping Lonzo. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker definitely showed flashes of that. It was great when it comes to attacking the basket. He had his shot on. Really underrated at creating space for himself in isolations. I was really impressed with what I saw. Great flashes, and hopefully he can, keep that up for the entire season. Relatively, he's probably not going to be averaging 23 points a game this year. But if he can really improve, that'll be big for the Pelicans as a whole. But the guys, that's going to do it for another On the Ball on a Friday night. Thank you for joining us. Before you get out of here, just want to remind you to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the show. Download the TWSN mobile app for more content from us and everyone else here at TWSN. Also, our company has a betting service. It's NFL season. Now NBA season is here, UFC cards. We got that all covered. Our betting analysts are giving you the best advice out there. Our CEO, Malik Wright, has been making he's just been cashing checks in these past weeks. He's making five digits off some of these parlays. It's insane. So again, and all that stuff is there. You do have to, pay some money, but if you pay some money, you're going to make up for it in with just a one bet. You'll make up.
Literally in a day, you'll make up for that money by times 5. It's such a good deal.
Literally the first bet, that money will already be taken care of, and then you'll just be earning from there. If you follow what our guys have, it's a great service. So make sure to just at least check it out and consider buying in and investing in it. But thank you for tuning on the ball. We will be here next week. Have a good night, everyone.
Is this the dagger?